Hello. You ever get that gut feeling that something is off? Like the universe is nudging you, whispering, "Hey, buddy, you're about to get royally screwed?" Yeah, I ignored mine. Turns out, I shouldn't have. But don't worry, by the time I was done, I made sure my cheating wife wished she had never been born. Let's rewind a bit. My name's Adam. 36, corporate job, financially stable, and, up until recently, painfully naive. If you had told me 6 months ago that I'd be sitting here, writing this story for strangers on the internet, I would have laughed in your face. Back then, I was the guy who had everything figured out, or so I thought. I was married to Laura, the woman I had once believed was the love of my life. You know the type, gorgeous, charismatic, the kind of person who could walk into a room and have everyone's attention without even trying. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world when she talked to you, which in hindsight should have been a red flag. Turns out, she was pretty good at making multiple people feel special. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 6. We had the kind of marriage that looked picture perfect on the outside, nice house in the suburbs, matching coffee mugs, those stupidly coordinated Christmas pajamas she insisted on every year. I was the guy who booked surprise vacations for our anniversary, the guy who wrote heartfelt notes on sticky pads and left them in her purse, the guy who thought marriage meant being a team. What a joke. The cracks started small, like they always do. At first, it was little things. Her phone, which used to be casually tossed onto the kitchen counter, was suddenly glued to her hand like an extra limb. She started working out more, which wouldn't have been weird if she hadn't spent the last 6 years calling the treadmill Satan's conveyor belt. And then there were the late nights. Oh, the late nights. She worked in marketing, which I never questioned. Sometimes campaigns ran late. Deadlines had to be met. I stayed late at work too. But suddenly, these urgent meetings were happening a lot. She'd come home with that tired but weirdly glowy look, the one people get after a long day, or after spending a little too much time with someone else. At first, I ignored it. Because that's what we do, right? We convince ourselves that we're imagining things, that we're paranoid, that the woman who promised to love us forever wouldn't be the kind of person to throw it all away for a cheap thrill. And then I started noticing Nathan. Nathan was, well, let's just say, if you had to imagine the most stereotypical finance bro, you'd land pretty close. He was the husband of Laura's best friend, Melanie. He wore loafers without socks, had a gym membership he never shut up about, and was just rich enough to be insufferable about it. He and Melanie had been married since college, and from what I could tell, their marriage was about as stable as a house of cards in a wind tunnel. It started with innocent little things, Laura laughing a bit too hard at his jokes, lingering a second too long when she hugged him hello. Then the comments, "Nathan's so ambitious," or "Nathan really understands how hard work pays off." Like I was some idiot who didn't pull in 6 figures just to keep her happy. I told myself I was imagining it. Until I wasn't. One night, she went out for drinks with Melanie. I didn't think much of it, until Melanie texted me. "Hope Laura's having fun tonight. Wish I could have joined." What? I stared at the screen. Stared at the clock. Stared at the empty house around me. Then I did something I had never done before. I checked our phone bill. Now, for anyone who's never done this, let me tell you, it's like opening Pandora's box, except instead of ancient curses, you get a giant middle finger to your self-esteem. A number kept showing up. Over. And over. And over. Nathan. At first, I thought maybe it was normal. Maybe they were coordinating surprise gifts for Melanie. Maybe I was just really overthinking things. But then I looked at the timestamps. Calls late at night. Calls at lunch. Calls during the hours she was supposedly at the gym. And then I saw them, messages. Hundreds of them. I didn't have access to read them directly, but the sheer volume told me everything I needed to know. Nobody texts their best friend's husband at 2 a.m. unless it's about one thing. I wasn't even angry at first. I just felt cold. You know that feeling? The one where your stomach drops, and your brain tries to convince you that you're not actually seeing what you're seeing? So I decided to confirm it. I installed a small GPS tracker in her car. Nothing fancy, just a simple location tracker that would tell me where she went late at night. I know. Invasions of privacy, moral debates, blah blah blah. But I figured, if I was wrong, then I'd just be a paranoid idiot and we could move on. Spoiler alert, I wasn't wrong. The first night, she said she was meeting an old co-worker for dinner. The tracker? It said she was at a hotel. The second night, she said she had a work event. The tracker? Back at the same hotel. By the third time, I didn't even need the tracker. I already knew. I was married to a liar. So, what does a loving husband do when he finds out his wife has been warming another man's bed? Pack up and leave. Confront her in a screaming match? Cry into a beer at a dive bar while the bartender pretends to care? Nah, that would be too easy. Instead, I decided to give her the anniversary of a lifetime. People talk about the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I went through them all in the span of an hour, except somewhere in between, I unlocked a 6th stage: meticulously planned revenge. See, most guys in my situation make the classic mistake of going nuclear immediately. They scream, flip tables, pack a bag, storm out, maybe even try to fight the other guy. Amateurs. All that does is give the cheater the upper hand. They cry, play the victim, spin the story. Oh, he was so controlling. He overreacted. It just happened. That wasn't gonna be me. No, I wanted calculated devastation, the kind you don't recover from. I had time. Our anniversary was 3 weeks away. That gave me 21 days to craft something truly spectacular. I started by playing the role of the oblivious husband. Extra sweet, extra attentive. I wanted her to relax, to think she was getting away with it. Because when people think they're safe, they get sloppy. First, I dug deeper. I wasn't just going to expose the affair. I was going to destroy every last illusion she had of coming out of this with her dignity intact. I got access to her cloud storage. Simple password reset. Her photos, messages, videos, all there. And let me tell you, I hit the jackpot. Texts where she made fun of me? Check. Ugh, Adam is so boring in bed. You make me feel alive, Nathan. Voice notes detailing their hotel rendezvous? Check. Screenshots of his desperate texts begging for more? Oh, absolutely. But my favorite? The videos. Yes, videos. My loving wife, in all her glory, sent straight from her phone. I won't go into details, but let's just say she had no business criticizing me for being boring when she performed like a dead fish. Next, I laid the bait. I sent Laura flowers at work, handwritten card, extra romantic. Can't wait for our anniversary, babe. It's going to be a night to remember. Let her feel that guilt, that unease. Then, I befriended Melanie. Now, Melanie had always been more of Laura's friend than mine. But under the right circumstances, a woman scorned is a nuclear warhead. I played dumb. Told her I was planning a huge surprise anniversary party for Laura, wanted to invite all our friends and family. Could she help? She ate it up. She was thrilled, all smiles, telling me how sweet I was, how lucky Laura was. Oh, Melanie, if only you knew. By this point, I had gathered enough dirt on both Laura and Nathan to ruin them socially, financially, and emotionally. But I wasn't done yet. I needed one final touch. So, I booked a venue. An expensive one. Somewhere elegant, with a private projector screen, because what's a celebration without a grand reveal? Then, I sent out the invitations. Friends, family, Laura's parents, Nathan's parents, their colleagues, Melanie, and, of course, Nathan himself. I was counting down the days like a kid before Christmas. Every night, I kissed Laura goodnight, told her how much I loved her, how excited I was for our special night. And every night, she texted Nathan the same recycled lies. I hope they had fun, because their fun was about to end. I'll give Laura credit. She really thought she was untouchable. She waltzed around the house like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't sneaking off to the same hotel every few nights, like she wasn't sending messages that would make even the most depraved soul blush. The sheer audacity of it all would have been impressive if it weren't so pathetic. While she was off, working late, getting plowed by Nathan, I was working overtime on my masterpiece. Every move I made had to be precise, every detail executed perfectly. One misstep, and she might catch on. But she didn't. Because cheaters? They're lazy. They're so used to getting away with it that they stop paying attention to the little things. I started seeding doubt in her mind. It was subtle at first. A little extra affection. A few more I love yous than usual. A deep, lingering stare across the dinner table that made her shift uncomfortably. I could see it. The tiny flicker of guilt in her eyes, the split-second hesitation before she kissed me goodnight. She knew she was a terrible person, but she also thought she was safe. Then, I took it up a notch. One day, I casually mentioned Nathan in conversation. Just an innocent, offhand comment while she was making coffee. Oh, ran into Nathan the other day. He seems really stressed. I watched her fingers tighten around the mug. She didn't look up, just muttered, "Yeah? Work's been rough for him lately." A weak deflection. Cute. A few nights later, I waited until she was out with friends. I knew exactly where she was, but instead of texting her, I called her. Twice. She didn't answer. The next morning, I played the clueless husband. "Hey, you okay? I called you last night." She fumbled over an excuse, something about being too deep in conversation to notice her phone. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, "No worries, babe. Just wanted to check in." You know what happens when someone thinks they're getting caught but they're not sure? They spiral. They start second-guessing everything. Did I leave a clue? Did I slip up? Does he know? I could see it in the way she started watching me. She thought she was being subtle, but I could feel her eyes on me when I walked past, hear the slight hesitation in her voice when I asked about her day. Then came the best part. Nathan started cracking. Melanie had unknowingly become my little informant. One evening over coffee, she let it slip that Nathan had been acting weird. Jumpy. Checking his phone constantly. Coming home agitated. I swear, sometimes it's like he's expecting something bad to happen, she laughed. I chuckled along with her, taking a sip of my coffee, knowing exactly what was coming. Because while Laura thought she was the only one who had to worry, Nathan was getting hit from all sides. A few anonymous text messages, nothing too aggressive. Just enough to keep him on edge. You think no one knows? Your luck's running out. Hope you're ready for what's coming. He must have been losing his goddamn mind. Laura, meanwhile, was completely oblivious. She had her own fantasy world where she and Nathan were destined lovers trapped in unfortunate marriages. "It's so hard," she had written in one message. "If only we could just be together without all this guilt." Oh, honey, the guilt isn't your problem. Reality is. The invitations were sent, the venue was locked in, the stage was set. Every single person who mattered would be there, her friends, family, colleagues. I even made sure to invite a few special guests. You know, like Nathan's boss. Why? Because Nathan had been dipping into company funds to finance his little extracurricular activities. And oh boy, was that about to come to light. The best part? Laura still had no idea. 1 week before the anniversary, she actually had the nerve to be sweet. She started making an effort, probably as some pathetic attempt to ease her conscience before she left me. She suggested a romantic dinner, just the two of us. She curled up next to me on the couch, wrapped her arms around me, whispered, "I'm so lucky to have you." I almost laughed out loud. Because in 7 days, her entire world was going to burn. The day finally arrived. My wedding anniversary. A day that was supposed to be filled with love, reflection, and appreciation. Instead, I had turned it into something entirely different, a reckoning. I woke up early, made Laura breakfast in bed. She smiled, kissed my cheek, acted like the devoted wife. I almost wanted to applaud her commitment to the act. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed her. But I did know better. And by the time she put down her coffee, her world was already unraveling. Step 1. Nathan. I scheduled an early morning delivery straight to his house, an envelope filled with printouts of every single message, photo, and video he and Laura had exchanged. No note, no explanation. Just a little gift to start his day off right. Step 2. Melanie. She got a similar package, but hers was more personal. A nice little USB drive filled with the kind of evidence that made it undeniable. No, we're just friends excuses. No, it was just an emotional connection bullshit. Just raw, unfiltered betrayal, neatly compiled into a highlight reel. Step 3. The venue. I arrived early, making sure everything was set up. The caterers, the decorations, the carefully arranged seating that placed Laura's parents right in front of the projector screen. I wanted them to have the best view in the house. The slideshow was queued up, waiting for just the right moment. Step 4. The calm before the storm. Laura was glowing when she arrived. Dressed in a stunning, deep red gown, hair done up in elegant waves, makeup flawless. She thought this was her night, her moment. She had no idea she was walking into her own funeral. She greeted guests with the grace of a politician, thanking everyone for coming, squeezing my hand with that practiced affection. I played along, smiling, whispering sweet nothings in her ear, letting her think I was the devoted husband, madly in love. She had no idea she was standing on a trapdoor. And then Nathan walked in. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost. He was pale, sweaty, barely holding himself together. His eyes darted around the room until he found me. Our gazes locked, and I gave him a little nod. Just a small one. Just enough to let him know exactly who did this. He turned, probably looking for Laura, and when he spotted her, I swear I saw him physically flinch. Because she still didn't know. She was laughing with her friends, smiling, glowing with fake happiness, while he was on the verge of an actual breakdown. I gave him about 5 minutes before Melanie arrived. And oh, Melanie. She was fire and fury in a silk dress. I had never seen someone hold so much hatred in their eyes. She didn't storm and screaming, didn't make a scene, not yet. She just watched. She stood there, clutching that little USB drive like it was a loaded weapon. And in a way it was. I let the tension build. Guests kept arriving. The room filled with laughter, music, the sounds of people who had no idea what was about to happen. I made sure Laura and Nathan never quite crossed paths. Not yet. I needed everything to be perfect. Then, just as the dinner was being served, just as everyone was settled, just as the glasses were being filled with champagne for the anniversary toast, I took the microphone. I smiled at my wife. Laura, darling, would you come up here? She beamed. She had no idea she was walking onto the gallows. I wrapped an arm around her, kissed her cheek. Before we get to the toast, I wanted to share something special. A little look back at our journey together. After all, tonight is all about celebrating love, trust, and commitment. The guests awed. Laura sighed happily. And then I pressed play. The projector flickered to life. And in a split second, the entire room fell into absolute, deafening silence. The silence after the slideshow ended was deafening. It stretched across the venue like an invisible noose, tightening around Laura's throat with every second that ticked by. The room was frozen in shock. And then, chaos. Laura's mother burst into tears. Her father, the ever-composed businessman, sat stiffly in his chair, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Melanie stood, arms crossed, tapping her heel on the floor like she was waiting for permission to detonate. Nathan? He looked ready to pass out. But Laura? Oh, Laura. She turned to me, shaking, eyes wide with panic. Adam, please, this is a misunderstanding. I can explain. I raised a hand, silencing her. Oh, I'm sure you can. Let me guess. You were lonely? It just happened? You were going to tell me eventually? She flinched like I had slapped her. Her parents turned to her, horrified. Her mother choked out. Tell me this isn't true, Laura. Tell me you didn't destroy your marriage for this. She opened her mouth, but before she could lie, Melanie pounced. You absolute hypocrite, Melanie seethed, her voice dripping with venom. You sat across from me for months and let me cry about my failing marriage, while you were sneaking behind my back with him? Laura's face drained of color. Nathan tried to speak. Slap. The sound of Melanie's hand cracking against his face echoed through the venue. A collective gasp followed. Nathan stumbled back, stunned. You think I didn't know you were a snake? Melanie hissed. But my best friend? You let me sit there and tell you how I felt like my husband was slipping away, and you had the nerve to tell me to work on my marriage while you were. She shook her head, disgusted. You're pathetic. Laura snapped out of her shock. Melanie, please. It wasn't like that. We never meant to. You never meant to what? I interrupted. Never meant to get caught. She whipped around to face me. Adam, you have to believe me, No, I really don't. I folded my arms, stepping closer, my voice dangerously calm. Tell me, Laura, which part should I believe? The text messages? The hotel receipts? The explicit videos you so kindly backed up to your cloud? She physically swayed. Someone gasped. Her mouth opened and closed. It was just a mistake. I laughed. A genuine, full-bodied laugh. A mistake? Laura, you booked a hotel every week for 4 months. You wrote love notes. You called me boring. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. So tell me, were you bored when you whispered in my ear last week how lucky you were to have me? Tears welled up in her eyes. Adam, I love you, I swear. No, I said, shaking my head. You don't. I turned to the room. And I think we all know that now. Her father stood abruptly. I can't even look at you, he muttered. How could you do this? Laura collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Nathan, still red-faced from the slap, tried to slink away. Going somewhere. I called out. He froze. I gestured toward a well-dressed man standing near the entrance. Nathan, meet Mr. Harper. He's head of corporate security at your firm. Nathan's face twisted in horror. Adam, wait. Wait for what? I said smoothly. For him to explain how you've been using company funds to finance your little getaways? how you've been embezzling money to keep your double life running. I grinned. Because, buddy, I don't think your boss is going to like that. Nathan's boss stepped forward. Nathan, he said, voice icy. We'll be in touch Monday morning. Enjoy the weekend. Nathan looked like he was about to vomit. Laura grabbed my hand. Adam, please, we can fix this. I pulled my hand away like her touch burned. Fix this, I said, mockingly. Laura, I already did. I fixed everything. I turned toward the crowd, smiling. Thank you all for coming to our wonderful anniversary celebration. I hope it was memorable. Then, with the whole room watching, I picked up my coat, buttoned it neatly, and walked straight out the door. Behind me? Pure carnage. I walked out of that venue and into the cold night air, the weight on my chest finally lifting. It felt like stepping off a battlefield, leaving the smoldering wreckage behind. Behind those double doors? Carnage. Screaming, crying, shattered illusions. A woman who just lost everything. A man who had his world ripped out from under him, and a crowd of people who would never look at them the same way again. I didn't look back. Not once. My car was parked a block away, but I didn't rush to leave. Instead, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the unread messages. Laura had been blowing up my phone. Adam, please, we can fix this. Please don't do this. I can't lose you. I love you. We made vows. That still means something, right? Vows? Oh, that was rich. I typed out a response, short and to the point. The vows ended the moment you decided I wasn't enough. Then, I blocked her number. Nathan had tried calling too, but I never even opened his messages. He wasn't worth another second of my time. I sat there, watching my breath in the cold air, letting the reality of it all sink in. The months of suspicion, the lies, the betrayal, they had all been leading up to this moment. And now, it was done. No screaming match. No messy legal battles. Just pure, calculated, devastating justice. The aftermath was everything I could have hoped for. Nathan? Fired. His boss made sure the termination was as public as possible. He had no reference, no severance package, nothing. Just a black mark on his career that would follow him forever. Melanie? Filed for divorce the very next morning. She cleaned out their bank accounts, took the house, and even got their dog. Nathan was homeless within a week. Last I heard, he was crashing on a friend's couch, jobless, broke, and completely alone. Laura? Oh, Laura. Her parents disowned her. Her mother cried to mutual friends, horrified that her daughter had become that kind of woman. Her father? He wasn't the emotional type. He was strategic, ruthless. And Laura had embarrassed him in front of every person who mattered. Which is why he cut her off completely. She lost everything. The cushy life, the financial support, the stability. She had to move out of our house within the month. And because of our loyalty clause prenup, she didn't get a single penny from me. She reached out one more time. A letter. Handwritten. Pages long. She begged, pleaded, told me she would do anything to fix it. She admitted everything, even things I didn't know about. She swore she loved me, that Nathan was a mistake, that she had taken me for granted and would never forgive herself. You know what I did? I didn't read a single word. I ripped it up, threw it away, and walked out the door. The months that followed? Liberating. For the first time in years, I felt light. Like I wasn't carrying the weight of a one-sided marriage. I traveled, took time for myself, reconnected with friends I had lost touch with. And then, one day, a friend of Melanie's introduced me to someone new. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something genuine. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'll never settle for less than I deserve again. And Laura? I hope she thinks about that night every single day for the rest of her life. Because some anniversaries? They really are unforgettable. Bye-bye.